All right. I am breathing very, very heavy here. I just ran up some stairs. Hold on 1 second, guys. Let's just get set up here. Let me know about the sound. What's going on, everybody? Justin Thomas here. Welcome to After the Shield Wall. Those aren't going to work. And wow, in memoriam right here to the Shield Maiden. And let me get confirmation that I can be heard and we will get this going. Let's see. Ran up some stairs. I just realized how horribly out of shape I am. And 2 minutes and we go, guys. Let me know thoughts. So I'm already seeing definitely differing opinions, which is to be expected about the outcome here. We got to give props to Johnny Be Crazy. Let's see. Let me get this screenshot up. Earlier, I was discussing this with Johnny from House of the Conqueror, and I was posing that Vitchek would be the one to kill Lagertha. Because essentially, whoever killed Lagertha at this point, in my opinion, wasn't going to get too much heat because they'd already made us so content with her death. We knew it was coming and so forth. And let's face it, how many characters have killed other main characters in this series, and we've continued to enjoy them anyways. And this would make sense, especially if Ivar is going to be, well, he definitely is going to be going to England in 6B. If Vitchek is still alive, which we're going to get into all of that, this would be a reason for him not to be in Norway. So, and go with Ivar and have a repairing of their relationship, which would endear us to Ivar some more. But let's see. But Johnny called it exactly like this. I did not like the hallucination thing. I thought that it just might be a manipulation thing once Ivar got there. But wow, props to him. Let's see if I can pull that up, guys. Let me know if this sounds too loud, the audio. And if you can hear breathing, that's because I ran up some stairs. And again, I'm just realized how horribly out of shape I am. Okay. What do we got here? All right. Let's see. Give some credit where it's due, Johnny. Yeah, but how'd you guys feel about it? I mean, it was coming to an end no matter what. I don't know if I like the whole, because the idea is there's a lack of agency in his actions because he's so emotionally fucked right now that, you know, people are more willing to maybe give him some leeway. I did not like this, but I got to give props to House of the Conqueror also using our private messages here. But yeah, sure, he wouldn't be the only person that called it, but you called it exact there, John. You called it exact. Let's see. And I'm getting to all your questions or comments, not questions. So. Ivar was too obvious. It had to be. Yep. Yeah, I agree. If Ivar would have, you know, I really thought that it could have been even white hair because, yeah, is it white eye? Just because at this point, that would be dying by the sun's hand because Bjorn definitely fucked up by how he handled that. So I thought that, yeah, that works. You know, like prophecy is... it's penciled in after the fact. You don't have a situation where you usually like have prophecy that's literally fulfilled because again, at least with the show's kind of like atheist approach and so forth, you have it work out in a way in which like the prophecy, you can see how like people keep believing in prophecies because after the fact, like they can kind of like workshop the scenario and they can be like, well, she did die by a son of Ragnar because Bjorn was the one that, you know, exiled them in the way he did. So he forced their hand, thus he was killed. So it's not literal, but I did believe they were going to go with a on the nose fulfillment, a literal fulfillment of prophecy in this case. And I thought it was fine that they did it. And I was like, Ivar can't do it because Ivar, what are they doing right now? And we're going to go through the episode. They're going to great lengths to endear us have an empathetic viewpoint of Ivar. So if he comes and kills Lagertha, that's gone. All that work's gone. So like it had to be somebody else, and Vitchek really checked the box. So I don't know. I don't know if I really though agree with that, because again, it's a little bit of a lack of agency, but it's not a complete lack of agency. If you have him go and be manipulated, was how I saw this happening. You know what I mean? So this was a little bit too hands off for my liking. But again, this was the outcome I thought would happen, and this is, this is fine. This is interesting. Now we have to come to our own conclusion through wild speculation. If we think that pyre scene of him burning, or at least being above flames, is going to come to fulfill, actually come to fruition. Or if that's, usually you think, hey, we got that in the original preview for 6A. So it's like, hey, are they really going to show the death of a major character, or like right before the death in the preview? Maybe, because it's one of those things that it's like, I'm saying it already. Well, they're not going to really show us the death in a preview like that, but they know that you are so jaded to whatever you see in that out of context sequence that they could slip it in there and it could still work. So it's hiding in plain sight. So let me know in the chat if you guys think he's actually going to die, be killed, if Bjorn's going to kill him. Because I mean, let's be fair. Even though I did not like Aslog, come on. I mean, their mother was killed. They were all fine with their mother. I mean, yes, there was some hiccups, and Ivar was not fine with it. But they got they got off scot-free, for that. So Bjorn came back when Ubbe made his attempt and said, if you kill her, you got to kill me. They all kind of accepted it. So will Bjorn be accepting of this, and how much power is he going to be having? And we also have the big introduction of Eric the Red, who is supposed to be in last season. He shot 16 episodes altogether, that Canadian actor. And they, for some reason, didn't have any of his scenes air last season. So they said that it still might be 12 to 15 episodes. So if that's true, that means he'd be in every single episode till the end of the series. Like, they could only get about 4. Excuse me, catching my breath here, guys. Let's see. All right. So we've got Lady Lordaine Fall. Let's see, Kane McKay in the house. We will get the start of the fight on the beach and the burning scene next episode. We will see Vitchek cleaned up in fighting on the beach, so it has to be after the fire scene. He lives. Yeah, I think that, Olaf too was said to set 3 fires. Like there's in his whole history / mythology, the accounts of the Olaf Targaryen, the actual guy who is the grandson of Harold, he set 3 fires. That's his tale. So there's been 2 already. It's the one that he set outside of Kattegat, and then he set the one with the Greek fire, the oil, whatever it was. So then maybe this could be interpreted as his 3rd. We'll see. It's going to be interesting though. So let's see what Lady Lordaine Starfall. I'm still proud of my lunch saying it out there. Yeah. There, guys, and I'm starting to catch it really quick. Okay, so right away, Lady Lordaine is not liking the way. Oh no, you're liking the way she went out. I apologize. You do and agree. She went out like a boss. Ray West says this was a terrible death for no reason. Hated it. Everybody is entitled to their opinion, everybody. Remember that. Let's see. And hello, my friend. How are you? New Ivar B2. Yeah, so the consensus seems to be that we all knew it wouldn't be Ivar. Who could it be? Vitchek kind of fits the bill. There's been people predicting this for over a year now that Vitchek could be it, because kind of what is he up to? And they built him down this whole season, meaning he is in a situation in which he, again, from a showrunner's point of view, that's going to be the person that you're going to have commit this action, because he has a lack of agency. People have an empathetic viewpoint for him. Lagertha has to go out, and then the person that dealt that death doesn't necessarily need to leave the series, meaning they don't need to kill him. And how can they do that in a way that, can we forgive Bjorn for not avenging Lagertha? Like that's a great question right there for the fans. It's like, can we forgive if Bjorn doesn't? Do we think that this needs retribution? Do we think that this needs vengeance? Does it need to be a escalating event, or can we kind of be like, all right, he's gonna have bigger problems on his hands, like Keen McKay says in the chat, that we do see him fighting when the roost comes. So that's a nice distraction right there. And then cooler heads, or the heads that are still on their shoulders after, will prevail, because let's remember that we are dealing with a character that just had a hallucination so bad that he killed Lagertha by mistake. So let's factor in that scene of him on the pyre is also just as likely to be a hallucination of his own, or a fever dream. Same. Justin, will you be discussing part 2 where Keen Harold is voted off? No, yeah, we're gonna start right. Yeah, sorry guys. We'll start from the beginning here. We're gonna discuss it all. And New Zealand almost same thing, but we're not burning. Yeah, no, it's messed up over there in Australia. And thank you. And you guys, obviously, if you're not subscribed to Keen McKay, he is the best in the fandom. This is the after show I try to do when I can do it, because I am not a full-time content creator. So I try to get out videos when I can. Keen does the awesome videos for the upcoming episode, the preview. He gets those out right away. So I thought if we're going to have something going on, then I will do an after show, since that is a way to fill a little bit of gap as well with the limbo space for the content. So I just need to check my mic really quick, and we'll start right from the beginning about Harold and how we feel about it, and then we will go. All right, so we should be good. So, all right, we start off the episode with Harold winning the King's Moot of sorts. I think that makes sense. That makes sense. That is the king of... Okay, first off, let's all remember that he came in to Ragnar's house and yelled, "I'm going to be the king of all Norway." In Aslog, that was his first line. Aslog said that would mean you had to overthrow my husband, Ragnar. Then she was, pissed at him for being a dopehead at the time, and overall just kind of being Aslog, not that great of a character in my opinion. She didn't seem to have too much of an issue with it, so Bjorn shouldn't be that surprised. He is the historical, this is the historical king of Norway. It makes sense because we saw that there is some wheeling and dealing. Keen has an excellent video about it, about the body language and so forth. The interesting aspect of this is how Olaf is going to feel about this, since, Olaf was doing this to kind of like try to, in my opinion, figure out what's going on, at least in his life, for as far as his beliefs go. I think that he's having an existential crisis of sorts. I did a little bit of a video about this, where he was definitely capturing obviously Harold for like literally to like have a theological like throwdown. It's like your buddy, like I do this with my brother like a lot. Like he'll never like engage in any type of I love you, brother, but he'll never engage like in any like philosophical discussions or theological, anything like that. Like, so like sometimes like I'll try to like force one upon him. So I could see like, like locking somebody in a room and being like, all right, man, let's talk about like, determinism versus free will. Let's talk about, let's talk about some deep shit. So he's trying to reconcile this within himself. He now is accused by Harold in this of not believing in their gods. I don't believe that to be true, because as I've said in a video that released like a few days ago, he believes that the Christian religion will win the minds of the people over, because he says it's going to take over. But then he says he needs to get the Valhalla. Valhalla requires you to die as a warrior, die in battle. If you are a Christian, by the definition, and you follow that doctrine, you can't believe that you are able to go to Valhalla, as well as, the Christian religion is also like something you believe in, because the doctrine says you have to accept Jesus and so forth, and then you would go to hell for the same actions that land you in Valhalla. So, you can always have like mix, and we all cultivate our own spiritual beliefs to fit our lives. We won't get too deep into it, but that's really a big issue right there. Like that's a big conflict of interest. Like you can't say, hey, I'm going to Valhalla, but also like I am a Christian, because you kill your way into Valhalla and you kill your way into hell. So they're in complete, conflict right there. So I think that what he was doing this for, it was tried to, and I have an excellent, I have to pull up the screenshot from a new subscriber, I believe Omar, that was going over how he felt about what Olaf was doing in this situation, about how he knows that they are going to be at war with the Christians, as he says, and he has this really good point about how combining the pagan forces and combining their religion. So yes, this isn't a way to get into Valhalla, because I'd mentioned politicking your way into Valhalla is not really like how you get there either. So this is a weird thing, because he said, I want to go to Valhalla before this happens. So I was like, well, how's he getting into Valhalla by this? You also don't get there by like throwing a fucking democratic election. So you literally need to die in battle. So the point was brought up that this was probably so they could combine their forces. So when Christian beliefs, started to try to take over, they'd have more of a opposing force. And he was, they were killing themselves when they should be killing others, I guess. So no, it was a really good point. So I'll bring it up in my next video. I talked to him about sharing some of that information, because he had a real good spin on it. So let's see. Ass lock. So so okay, so Harold is king. We kind of saw that coming. Bjorn didn't. I really don't know how. You probably shouldn't be trusting him. The biggest flip on this for me is the immediate killing, the attempt on Bjorn's life. I found to be an interesting approach. I think that's probably smart. If you're gonna fuck somebody over, you should probably get rid of them. Like if you're a Viking and you're gonna fuck another Viking over that's really powerful, you can't take half measures there. Half measures will get you killed. So I agree, in theory, if I'm play devil's advocate with what Harold's trying to do. Now, Flatnose is a little bit suspicious to me. Why was he on Bjorn? So why did he just crack a deal with Harold and then go warn Bjorn? I found that to be very interesting. And of course, Bjorn is saved by Eric the Red. So I think that this fits the story, because like I said, Bjorn as king of all Norway doesn't work for me. Bjorn is not a king. We've seen this. His decisions are terrible. He doesn't, I don't think he'd be happy doing it, just from what the story's given us. And they need to bookend this, in my opinion, at least as much as possible to where history has it bookended. Meaning, like, when it's convenient to follow history, they should follow it. And this adds up. This is something that's been foreshadowed throughout the whole show. Even if this was total fiction and this was not based off even, any historical accounts or any mythology, let's just say this is a completely fantasy show, it would still make sense within the context of the narrative for Harold to become king of Norway, not Bjorn. So I think that this works good. If you're wondering if I'm happy with it or not happy with it, I'm happy with it. I don't know, a little bit of a time waster as far as like how simplistic it was. There wasn't like a big twist about it. Was just like he just straight up won, right? It wasn't like too Machiavellian. It wasn't too, but it wasn't too elaborate. So I don't know. But Vikings does have a whole lot of hurry up and wait, as we've seen. But the injection of Eric the Red was awesome. We need that. They need that as well for the segue of Leif Erikson in the 100 years after Vikings Valhalla that will be taking place. It's going to Netflix. This is bridging that gap that they need to bridge. And he spoke, I believe, briefly about it, about how he was in trouble for some murders. So he gets exiled like quite a few times throughout the saga. So supposedly his town in Norway, his region of Norway, he did kill a few people and he was exiled for that. And then again, he's exiled once he gets over to Iceland. That's Greenland. We'll get that in a minute. So, all right, let's see. I don't get the writing about Olaf's new wife. Why? What is the meaning of that? Your thoughts, please. Okay. That's yeah. Thinking about Ivar's story thread here, I have been a like born again Ivar fan. I hated Ivar. I literally hated the character of Ivar. I thought he was I once referred to this man as a fuckboys protagonist. He is like he's cool because they told you he's cool. He's smart because they said he's smart. Like he was always, you're told how to feel about this gentleman. You're never shown that you believe this. You're never actually convinced that the strains on the puppet were very, very easy to see per se. And, the whole he can't walk unless we need him to. They did fall back on, hey, he's handicapped, and, the sense of we'll have him move around in battle with his, braces or whatever, but his penis doesn't work is kind of the old joke. It's just make sure his penis doesn't work. So if you do one thing in front of Ivar, you shouldn't boast about your libido. You shouldn't, showcase your ability to have sex. We saw how creepy he was in the earlier seasons watching his brothers. We know how vengeful he can be and spiteful he can be about his inability to procreate, his inability to engage in sexual activity. I think that Olag right there, not a good move, obviously, right? Like, he's poking the bear too much. If you're going to try to take somebody, break somebody down, you're trying to wear on somebody, you're trying to take away their power, you're trying to belittle them, he's trying to make Ivar his bitch. You need to make sure they're your bitch before you start doing shit like that. Like, don't have sex with the girl that he literally, I mean, Olag can't know this, but is like, his perspective is it is his ex and so forth, and it's just really rubbing the dog's nose in it way too soon. And I don't advise doing this by any means, but I think that as far as storytelling goes, I don't like it. I don't like that writing, because we have a guy that's in power, right? And this was one of the problems with Ivar, and now he's supposed to mirror Ivar, and he does in every way. And I guess that becomes problematic for both me in the story, though, because I do like the mirroring, and this is a fantastic way to invoke empathy for Ivar. But here's the problem with that. He's doing shit like this. Okay, so it's always stupid when you see... Bad way for it. It's always ill-advised to write a powerful character that you want people to dislike by writing him to be a fool, because it brings up the question, how'd he get in power, and how'd he stay in power? Archie. How'd they get to power? How'd they keep the power? These foolish actions are not actions of somebody that would be able to consolidate that amount of power. It's like, you have to have somebody that is doing things that, yes, you don't like, but you don't have to go and have them do things that are so, egregious and evil, that are also stupid. Like, lasers on sharks, stupid. Because it becomes too much of a suspension of disbelief. I don't buy that this moron is in power at this point, because he's been doing too much stupid stuff. He was good at first. Now I think they've spent too much time with him, and we've seen the good writing run out. This is an example of too on the nose. He was already very bothered by the reflection of Freydis within his new wife, meaning like he saw, what he had and what he killed. So, that was enough. You don't need to be that on the nose. And also, that's not an action of an intelligent person. So you can be a bad leader, but you still have to convince people that, like, you got to that position in the first place. And it's just actions like that can kind of kill it for me. It's like, all right, this person is just unbelievable that he's still even in power, because it's just one stupid action after another. So that's my feelings on that. Let's see. Ubbe is much more fit to be everything, guys. Ubbe, first off, he did the one thing that they've been trying to do, which is essentially settle, like what became Danelaw, the East Anglia. So he did like the one thing Ragnar wanted to do. I think that he is the best cast son of Ragnar. I've said it many times. He handles the physicality very well. He looks like he's like about my size or bigger. I'm about like 175, 6 foot. Like, like a regular sized dude. Everybody else is about like 110 pounds. So like is what it is. But like, yeah, Ubbe is much more fit. Like he doesn't have hubris in the way a lot. He takes care of all Bjorn's kids, even though, somebody needs to tell Bjorn that his son is dead, but then they'll probably have to first tell him that he had a son. Yeah, he's just a good guy overall. Ubbe is just a good guy overall. We seen him falter a little bit in York, right? And we saw him. They depicted him as a kind of a weak leader, because he goes over to the Saxons, and that's how they justify the rise of Ivar. So that was kind of where Ivar got his cult following was over, with the heathen army, because he wasn't the one that was going and trying to like sue for peace and so forth. So yeah, I agree. Okay. And then we got, what do you? Freaking sharks with lasers. Yeah, and then I want to say really quick, I linked, Dan Youngblood. He said thanks for posting the group. Yeah, he runs. He's one of, I think you are the leader or the creator of that group, Vikings Aftermath crew. Listen, I'm not a big fan of Facebook groups, but I literally have to watch this series like usually two or we'll do it anyways, but because I have so much fun in the live chat with you guys. Like, I don't engage with any other Facebook like that group, and that's an excellent group. So I put the link in there. They're really great people. They have intelligent discourse, and I don't know. I like this fandom. The Vikings fandom is really, really refreshing after what happened with Thrones and so forth. So. Okay, it looks like we could see Alfred or Floki or Rollo until the back 10. Yeah, now they've chosen to keep us away from Floki or Alfred. I more so have an issue with them keeping us away from Alfred than Floki, because Floki was one of our favorite characters, and they kind of fucking killed him, kind of ruined him for us in the previous season. So I think that less is more with him. I would have no issue. I've said this on several occasions. If they take Floki and we don't see him until they Deus Ex Machina his ass into the last episode, Alfred I have a little bit of a different perspective on, and the only thing that we need to keep in mind is, just like Ivar needs to return to Norway and be seen in a different light, we need to continue to see him do things that are advantageous for us getting behind him. I think they did too good of job with having us grow attached to Alfred. I'm not saying he's the best character in the world, but I think the actor's good, and I think they did a really good job. They followed his brother up, Aethelred, but besides, I really think that Alfred is like a compelling character, and I have a lot of empathy for him. More so, if this was like last season, you asked me, who would I want to win in a fight between Ivar and Alfred, which we know is coming, I'd be like Alfred. But now I'm starting to like Ivar, but I haven't lost my empathy for Alfred, but have I started to, because I haven't seen him? I kind of think they're like bleeding it dry. They're kind of like putting him on the shelf because they know that we've been attached. We're immersed in this story, and we're attached to that character, and they want to have a compelling narrative for the final half, but they also are right in that thin line between, like, Blackwater is a perfect example. Like, who did you want to win if you're a Game of Thrones fan when the Battle of Blackwater was happening? Did you want the King's Landing forces to win? Most likely you had, yes, a little bit of skin in that game because of Tyrion. You hated Joffrey, but you liked Tyrion. Did you want Stannis to win? A lot of us you want both to win, and that makes for compelling television, but you can't have it you have to have people there that you still don't like, is my point. Like, on both sides, you had people that you didn't like and actions that they took that it didn't like. You can't just have two people that are wildly popular going against each other. You need to have some flaws within that. They've definitely injected them in Ivar's character. Now, Alfred, there's really not, he kept his word to Uhtred. Not Uhtred, this isn't last game, to Ubbe. He kept his word to him. In the real historical accounts, the settlement in which is settled by Guthrum. It becomes territory in which they refer to as Danelaw, meaning they run the courts, they run the taxes, and Guthrum's the one that breaks the pact, not Alfred. So, so far in history and within the context of the show only, we have no reason to dislike Alfred. We really have no reason. They've made us like him, I'd say, exponentially. So I think that we are going to get him episode 10, 6A, and he is going to be doing something egregious. I think that they are going to really not only detach us from this story thread in which they've been doing. They've been, bleeding us dry. They've been, again, making him cold, making us forget about him, making us forget that he didn't fuck over anybody. He was truthful, and he was honest and fair with all of the Saxons and with all of the, Danes. So, why would we want Ivar to go over there and fuck him up? What's the catalyst for that? So I think that's what's happening. And I don't really, it's a it's a reality of the whole thing. But I really think that it would have been much different if they wouldn't have just tried to garner all this empathy for Ivar in the last inning per se, or at least the penultimate inning. In If they would have done a better job developing Ivar, then I don't think you would have to worry about putting him on the shelf. And I don't think that the Roose story thread should completely displace the Saxon story thread. So that's my take on that. So let's see right here. I thought we'd like Vikings after Ragnar died. Ivar took over. Yeah. Once Alfred cut his hair, he was one of the best characters watching. Yes, that is the key. Cut your hair. Absolutely. Yeah, I won't like. I thought I wouldn't like Vikings after John Haymaker says he thinks he wouldn't. He thought he wouldn't have liked Vikings after Ragnar died, but Ivar took over and it kept going for me. Yeah, see, and again, I wasn't a fan of Ivar at first. I thought he was poorly written and so forth, but a lot of people got behind him, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. I was speaking about this the other day about content creation with a Lucifer Meets Lightbringer, excellent content creator that was doing a live stream about Dany, and just briefly, he was going over the context of the actual source material, and he was shining a light on what Dany's character represents and so forth. But the point is, he was using like solid narrative in literary criticism. He's using like logic based in substantial methodology, like a methodology that is got substance, and it has sound logic to it, and it is used, meaning like he's not just reading excerpts from Dany's chapter in turning them around or like molding them to his his whims. So he's going about it in a professional way. He's going about it in an effective way, and he's again just using methodology to shine a light on how Dany's character doesn't need to be this character that unfortunately has served as like such like a beacon of hope for people, and then not, is what I mean. Like people have like been like kind of swayed by the masses to stop like enjoying like Thrones altogether, especially characters like Dany that really like helped people that have dealt with mental health and have dealt with it was a beacon of hope for people, and people really felt attached to her. So when she did that, committed the actions in the television adaptation that she did, people were shamed or whatever. They just started believing that they couldn't like derive hope or feel enjoyment about her character anymore. And I always took issue with that, because number one, you consume a story, and this is what I'm talking about with Ivar. We all consume a story ourselves. We all derive our own interpretations and meaning behind that story. All right. Now the methodology in which you use in order to consume that story, meaning the way in which you interpret it and all that, should be based with some sound logic. Like I said, you don't need to go and study like literary criticism or anything like that. But that's what a content creator should do. When we talk about these shows, we should share not so much how you should feel. We should give our insight and our feelings on something. But in theory, I should be able to watch a stream by somebody or watch a video from somebody, hear what they say, and not agree with any of it, meaning like their conclusion about a character, because like all this comes down to is like, do you like them or not, what you took from it. But I should come away with like another tool in my tool belt, like with somebody like LML. He is really well versed, probably one of the best, especially in the Song of Ice and Fire, and deciphering all these symbols, and everything from astrology to all the different ways to look at story and look at the symbolic meanings of things and break it down in an intelligent way. I have no formal training in that, and that wasn't something I ever looked at. He's somebody that like is very into that like niche area of just going about the text and looking to decipher more than the words. He's looking to break down what the symbols mean and so forth. So like that's another tool to have. You shouldn't need to agree with what they say. It's up to you to decide how you feel, and you feel how you feel. There's no right or wrong about that. That's a fact. Your feelings are a fact. So yeah, I hated Ivar. And, it's fine if somebody else liked him from the get-go. I think they've done a better job of developing him now. And I think they've done that through mirroring another main character throughout the show, that, and the catalyst for change is here. Now, this big corner that they've turned here, I don't agree with, but also I don't think it throws it all out the window, but they do need to get him back to Kattegat now. They've spent too much time in the Rusland. So, yeah, let's see. Yeah, it's important to, I just don't get that. I don't get that I've never understood people just being told how to feel and think that their views are wrong or right. It's like, listen, when people write things, everybody from musicians to screenwriters to novelists, they feel differently about what their songs mean, what their stories mean throughout their lives themselves. So, there is no like for sure message that you need to take from something, but everything does mean something to you. So, I mean, like it's just a matter of opinion, man. But yeah, Danny's a good example. I felt really, I just got real pissed. I still do when I see people, they can't reconcile whether or not, like they can't like Danny and Sansa at the same time because they have to feel one person had to be responsible for something. It's like, come on, guys, get over it. Or at least interpret it how you want to. Don't let the like masses tell you how to feel. So yeah, now how do we feel about the election? As far as election goes, Olaf's not happy because it wasn't his test. It wasn't his workshop that he wanted. Like he pretty much was trying to like play out a scenario that I think would reconcile some things for himself, like I said, and that didn't turn out to be because it was flawed. But also, I mean, hey, welcome to democracy, pal. You did it. I mean, you did it. I mean, it did work. Harold was a little cheesy when he won. But also he's been kind of like held captive for quite a while, so he's probably, a little bit insane. But let's get into honoring the Shield Maiden at Lagertha. I was surprised that she died today in this episode. I could not get my video, again, not a full-time support man Patreon, not a full-time content creator, but I did say like at the second half couldn't cut out. It didn't really matter because the point was still going to stand, and I saw it going this way to begin with, that Lagertha's story was done. We knew it was happening. They were conditioning us as viewers to accept it. So there's a lot of hints, at least for me, that this was going to be somebody that they don't want us to hate for doing it. Even Lagertha forgives him, right? So there's a lot telling us that he doesn't need to die for this. And I'd like to know how you guys feel about if you are happy with a story that is going to, demand his execution, or you're going to be happy if Bjorn can come back and somehow disregard this. That's going to be quite the feat for him. Let's be honest. But also, he's got quite a bit coming his way. He's got the Roos coming, as well as he doesn't even Eric brings it up to him. Eric the Red, he goes, you don't have much power right now. So there's a few this seems to be set up in every way to allude to the fact that they are not going to kill him, except for the visual of him pretty much being killed that we've gotten in two previews. But I don't believe that they would go, especially Hearst, because remember, it's very, very rarely a plural. It's very rarely they, it's he. He's gone to quite the extensive, he's gone through an extensive process of making sure that this is like been framed in a way in which we don't feel Vitshek needs to be killed. And also the person that would feel they need to kill him is going to be, all the people are going to be very, very distracted by a greater evil. And I think that, again, it's just going to come down to how the fans feel about it. And well, it's going to come down to what happens, but I mean, how you feel about Vitshek is completely up to you. Again, I feel that, Vitshek is the embodiment of the emotional toll in which warfare takes in this story. Nobody else really like has any issues, right? Like emotional issues after like battles. He gives like, it's like he gives all the fucks for everybody emotionally. They need to pull him out of this because they did what they were going to do, because it's like, why are they breaking him down so much? So you see the acceptance of death of Lagertha throughout this whole first half, as well as a lot of the second half of 5B. So we see a lot of things that hint towards this. We see the acceptance of death by our Shield Maiden. We see the deterioration of spirit and agency within the person that's going to kill her. And we also see the acceptance of it because, again, the norms that, weave the fates, those are within their mythology. She speaks to this before the bandits come. She says that they've already, decided, the gods have already fated them, but I think it's pronounced the Noms, who are the weavers. It's these all female gods that are, some of them are elves, some of them are giants, and so forth, but it's a part of their mythology. I'll link it below. And, so she's taken a lot of the actual blame out of the killer's hands before it's even dealt. So I have to believe this narrative is telling me that they plan on keeping that guy around, right? Because why go through all this to not justify, but at least have an empathetic response to what's happening, meaning we understand that Vitchik did it and he didn't even mean to do it. It came out of hate for Ivar, right? It didn't come out of hate for Lagertha. He was in a bad place. He's in a bad place because of what? Because of wars that he necessarily wasn't at the forefront of. I mean, yeah, compared to the normal shield wall, warrior. But, he's not the brother that's like out there like waging like the wars. He's the one that's following the guy that's waging the war. So a lot of these issues have been taken away from him, like, they're out of his hands. The agency and his actions is low on all counts. So it's like, it's very much so formed in a way that I have to believe that they don't plan on killing him. And I believe that a good story thread would be him with Ivar, because would serve as a redemption for Ivar as well, to save Vitchik. If Ivar saves Vitchik, that is going to be a redeeming action, a highly, highly, redeemable deed for him to commit within the story would be for him to take Vitchik and for him to repair that relationship, because this has also been kind of like a on and off again bromance, a very unhealthy friendship, brotherhood between them. So I think that it would be endearing to see them come together. Will fighting who? The now evil, he'll cut his hair again. Alfred, or however they're going to frame him. So he's going to need to leave because he killed Lagertha. So he can leave when Ivar goes to England, is my point. So, but let me know if you think he needs to die or not. Let's see. Everyone knew her death was coming, Lagertha told Aslog. Yeah. So in the previews for next week, it looks like a lot of warriors are headed for Cattlegat. Yeah. They, like I said, everybody's going to have to like kind of like put what happened for the actual election on hold, and they're going to have to put this death of Lagertha on hold because they're going to have the Roos literally storm it like it's fucking Normandy, right? So this is going to really have to wait. I think Kerri McKay said it earlier, at least an episode. So I think that that's smart, because it's hard for me to deal with Bjorn coming back. Meaning, when I say deal, I mean like believe that Bjorn, if Bjorn came back and he was king and he had nothing else going on and he had Vitchik sitting there, I believe he would kill him. And it would be hard for me to believe that he didn't. That's when you lose an empathetic viewpoint, because empathetic means I understand that this character believes he needs to do what he needs to do. I have a hard time believing Bjorn would come back with jack shit else to do and be like, want to know what? You killed my mom. I said that, you'd have to all kill me, but I'm not going to kill you. I'm just not going to do it. No, now it's not that at all. First off, not king. Second off, you've got all the Roos knocking on your door. And did you notice that in the last episode, the big threat was they found out Ivar was on the Silk Road. So like, look at how far this story has gone. This is when, that's why Lagertha's story thread has been so effective. It's kind of went all over the place, but that's really in the end. And that takes a little bit of forgiveness on how some of it was a little bit contrived. Season 2, she's kind of just thrown over with Sivgard, ends up killing. We don't even ever find out like how that came to be, how she came to be married to him. But it is what it is. It's an ensemble cast and saga. So, but what I mean is we have gone from all these different roles, all these different walks of life that she's had. We've seen them fight against the Saxons. We've seen them fight with the Saxons. We've seen them fight for the Saxons against other Danes. So like Lagertha really has a very sympathetic and empathetic point of view when it comes to how the world works. And we saw this throughout this, but also like, how far have they gone from, going out and having this enemy, the Saxons versus the Danes. Now the biggest threat is one of their own. So they've seen, and this is what I believe Olaf has seen as well, and has been brought up to me by some very intelligent viewers, that he sees that they're too divided and they need to come together. So this can be a catalyst. The Roos come, they bring them back together, and I believe that is going to probably result in Fitzcheck living through this. And Lagertha's story has been effective in that sense. She has not been pissed when Gunhild told her that, yeah, maybe Bjorn made some mistakes. It's like, first off, yeah, he fucking made some mistakes. That was really stupid to do. You don't take away everybody's hope of redemption through society and then let them reside within your society. You have to either give people hope for redemption in like a place in the society in which they, reside in, or you need to make sure they don't reside in that society. Either put them in a room, jail, put that guy in a room, or do what Vikings do and kill him. Again, half measures will get you killed. So we've seen, she says it doesn't matter. She goes, why they did it, who they did it for. She knows that her son had good intentions. Good intentions, of course, paved the road to hell. But nonetheless, who's she to judge? She's made quite a few mistakes herself. She's protecting a lot of other shield maidens and civilians that don't have families because of the wars in which she and her ex, cultivated. They cultivated a society that was constantly at war. I mean, that kind of goes along with the way in which they live, the warrior culture, but also, it really escalated once they started going to Paris and so forth. So, and she started 2 civil wars. Lagertha started 2 civil wars. So, I think that's one thing, again, this show does so well, is that these characters, they all do some pretty egregious shit, and we don't get too pissed at them. It's just that they've endeared us to them, and they have redeeming moments. It's not this simplistic arc of like, now Ivar is on more of your like conventional, like old school, like simplistic arc of like, going through the stages of being, I guess he was good at first, whatever, then becoming power crazy, then learning his lesson, getting his comeuppance, and then taking it, and most likely, we're going to see him in England going against Alfred, which again, it's going to be interesting to see how well they do that, because Alfred right now hasn't fucked them over at all. So what's the reasoning? Are they going to go back to another settlement that's Slade? Big departure from history. The Vikings are the ones that break it, so we'll see. But it's usually a case of, look at how many, like hats Lagertha has worn. She has been a farmer. She has been a queen. She's been a wife. She's been widowed twice, 2 or 3 times. Two of those were by her own doing. But she is, she's been this walking metaphor for strength, as well as insecurity, as well as just being a human being. And they didn't sacrifice her sexuality or femininity for it. It wasn't a choice of, do I be a woman or do I be a warrior? It's like, no, I'm a woman, I'm a warrior. Nobody ever says, hey, I can't believe you're doing that, you're a woman. That's the one thing I'll give him credit for. It's never been said that she's like, it's never been like, oh my god, that woman can fight, like Brienne of Tarth in Game of Thrones. It's always just like everybody's commenting on it. There's a little bit of a hyperbolic response to, I believe, her fight this episode, as far as like Gunhild saying, if I didn't worship you before, I worship you now, because I've never seen anything like that. I will say the fight was good. I have to believe that Gunhild has seen something like that. Obviously, it was just out of respect, but Lagertha has embodied a lot of good traits, and she's been an effective character within this story to showcase the struggles of the time. They show in the first season her and Canute's rape. The rape in which is attempted on her leads to her killing Canute. That leads to Ragnar becoming king, because Ragnar has to go and lie to Haraldson, and then that lands him the battle. He kind of blames Lagertha for that. So they address like the the way in which a man would probably at that time try to take advantage of a woman like that. They're not like unrealistic about it. Like, so like the sexuality is like in there, it's there and it's realistic, but she's also, you know, still strong. And she does it in a way that's believable. And it's not, again, a choice between this or that. Being a mother is in no way going to stop her from being a warrior. Like, if you have people that you love, you fight harder. So like, it shouldn't be a choice. It's always a choice in these shows where, you know, I don't go looking for like empowering stories. I think that if you're going to inject something that's supposed to be like a ethical message or framework within your story, then it just like anything else. If you're going to tell a story about like female empowerment, do it well. If you're going to tell a story about Yogi Bear, do it well. Just do it well. I think this was done well because a lot of series go about doing things that are so-called, I hate the word woke, but you know, they very ethical framework to a lot of series these days as far as their narrative. It's a lot of stories that are trying to push a good message, which bravo for trying for a lot of them, but a lot of them fall short because if you're saying in most cases for these warrior tales of women that are warriors, they're proving that they can do things as well as men. If a depiction of a strong woman is a woman that can do what men do, then that is a disservice to women because that is putting men on the pedestal right away and saying, oh, you've got to be as good as them. No, everybody has capabilities. Show that they're capable. Show how they're capable. There's other strengths other than physical. And don't just say that, hey, we can pick up a spear too. Say, hey, I can also be witty. I can also be very cunning. I'm an intelligent person. I have mental strength. I have, you know, compassion. I have fierce in many different ways. There's other ways other than lifting things and doing what men do. Trust me. I'm happy as a man and think we're pretty great too. But everybody has good you know, aspects. So I think that her story was done well. I think that her death serves a purpose, and I find that hard to believe that her purpose would be to get Bitchek killed. So I think that they chose who killed her very specifically. Obviously, they chose somebody that they needed to bring to a certain point in the story in which they have envisioned. So I don't know if they choose to just kill Bitchek off like this because his history does land him in the roost, being burned, kind of like what they show. But I find it hard to believe they took all these measures for that. So let me know. But you know, they handle a lot of the love interests of Lagertha, I thought, in very good ways. I've always been endeared to her. Catherine Winnick is an excellent actress. I find her to be beautiful. She's stunning. You know, I'll be upfront about that. So yeah, I'm a little bit of I had a bias right away, but I thought it was good. I didn't think anything was too contrived, even when it was kind of thrown at us. Again, Astrid was kind of just thrown at us. What, she's like rolling jujitsu with her out of nowhere. We've never seen her before. That's her new love interest. Now she's, you know, again, a lot of things that could have been really perceived as just like, okay, they're pushing this agenda on us. And I didn't feel that way. But of course, if you did, I think that's fine. I think they've dealt with her character, though, in a pretty believable way and in a way that actually represents empowerment better than most. You know, I didn't think Game of Thrones did as good of a job as people say it did for female empowerment. It was, you know, fuck your intelligence, you know, you're not strong. Your only empowerment came through physicality and doing what men did, and it usually came at the sacrifice of other things that women, meaning you have to give up other traits that a female, whatever, you know, won't put them in a box, but you get what I mean. You can't have it. You can't be both. You have to essentially be a man to be strong. So I felt good about it. Let's see what we got here. I guess I thought ass like in the back. Yes. So yeah, I mean, things like that. The way in which she took power, not ethical. You know, like these are flawed characters. Think about the protagonists of her stories. Number one, if you didn't see my video that I'll link below, for the first half of the Shield Maiden's Tale, I talk a lot about how he holds 100 Years of Solitude in very high regard. He says it's the last great novel. There's never been anything like it. This is a story. 100 Years of Solitude is a story about reoccurring behavioral traits that are not good, about over nostalgizing things, about living in the past, looking to, you know, become great again instead of do great things. Also, it's a story that invokes myth along with history. You know, it's magic real, like there's realism within the magical aspects of it. Magical realism, sorry. And there's a lot that lends itself to Vikings because this is a mix between myth and history, and we use magical aspects that are right out in the open. But a lot of the characters have a lot of traits that aren't redeeming, and they keep doing them. And we still are driven in by them, and we still are willing to follow them in that novel. So if you look at, okay, let's say the Tudors, King Henry. How does King Henry die in that series? He dies with visions pretty much of all of his ex-wives telling him to fuck off, right? And saying that when he sees his son with Jane Seymour, Jane tells him that he won't live a long life because you've coddled him. You've done what your father did. You've done this, blah, blah, blah. So like he doesn't kill off his characters in a way that they die like glorious. Your heroes are not getting heroes' deaths. They're getting deaths like Ragnar's is a good example. He puts on a show because Ragnar, Travis Fimmel at least has said himself that Ragnar's an atheist. So Ragnar put on a show because he knew that his people needed to come back and avenge him, and he knew the best way to do that is use religion and weaponize it, and he did. So, but also, it was kind of a pitiful death for Ragnar, and he had just came back. He lied to his people about what happened in England. They found out. He went away for 10 years or whatever happened during that commercial break, and he came back to a whole bunch of people being disrespectful to him. So, like, people don't die in glamorous ways. Lagertha rode back at their fighting, somebody that her son branded that was, she was not at her height of power. She was just very humble. She was going back to the roots of farming and trying to, again, recapture what was, not what could be. And she goes back through the mud and is stabbed to death by somebody that's drugged out of their mind. It's not a glamorous death, but it's death, and it's believable. It doesn't mar everything she's done. It doesn't make her not great. And it's it's layered storytelling. That's something you have to do. These deaths have to allow for story to be continued, especially within sagas. They aren't the bookend. We'll see what happens, in the last half. I don't believe, though, a lot of the characters that will start 6B will be dead by the end. I actually don't even believe Rollo will ever die in this series, and I don't think it's necessary. So I think her death was necessary, but I think that she's kept the series going. In my opinion, if you weren't in Ivar, Lagertha was still there. And if you weren't in Lagertha, there's plenty of other, Ubbe had a great storyline. She empowered those around her, Torvi and so forth. That was a little contrived, but if you're going to tell a story about empowerment, it's good to show the empowerment within the story. But it did seem like Torvi just started like wearing like a jerkin and carrying a sword like just one day. And it seemed like she had dinner with her dad and was like, I want to be. And he's like, all right, we'll do that. Let's see. I gotta call it a night. Okay, yeah, thanks for stopping by. Lagertha's on ass log. So yeah, I mean, it's gonna come down to how they play out the Rus attacking in the aftermath, in the sense of where does everybody go and why do they go there? Why would Ivar go back to England right now? I mean, I find it hard to believe, if I'm wrong on this and whatever, but there's just no way in hell they're not having that like actual literal chess match, right? So how do they get there? Why would Ivar go there? Ivar might take a brother that's not wanted Norway anymore there. Bitch check. That makes sense to me. And once he goes there, he might see something he doesn't like. I don't know how they're going to do that, but that is what it is. Where does Bjorn? How does Bjorn become a Swedish king if they're going to go by that? Or how does he go back to Byzantium? Well, he's not king anymore. So, this battle and the Rus coming are going to show them the actual consequences of their actions, meaning how these characters have grown to make their society just insufferable. They are embracing this warrior culture that's not working out. Ragnar embraced a warrior culture, but Ragnar was trying to like cultivate, farmland and make society better, get more food in their bellies. They've kind of went away from that, and I think that is Olaf's, point of doing this, as well as kind of like trying to like, if you're wondering what's going on with the gods and if you have any meaning in your life, if everything's faded, the best way to take agency is by like saying, okay, the gods fade everything, so let's have an election where we get to say who's the best, not the gods, and so forth. So it's a situation in which they've grown powerful and they've grown richer, and they've been they've been more well versed in the world's ways, so that now they're seeing like other people's actions and they're just acting in the same way, but they're acting for like different like religious reasons, different ideologies, with the Rus and so forth. So they've seen good actions and bad actions from people that are believers of different faiths of theirs and ideology and so forth. So now that they've traveled around the world and probably concluded, hey, everybody's kind of shitty and we're shitty too, they need to make some changes, and changes are probably going to come in the form of, leaving this place in which they've now made so they can't even be king of their own like hub, Kattegat, the little sliver of Jutland that it is. He just got voted out of. So he needs to go and find his purpose. I think Bjorn has always been a wanderlust character. It doesn't make sense for him to be sitting on that throne. I think that, most likely they've foreshadowed that Ubbe is going to be going to Iceland. That'll thread that together. I wish he wasn't, but he's going to be going there. And I think that Ivar and Vitchek after this battle, I don't think Vitchek will be dead. I think they'll be going to England. So what you have to do, the question is, how does Ivar play any significant role in changing the tide of this battle? Because, obviously they beat the dog so bad that there's no way it's not going to bite, right? So how do we go about, having Ivar come back and Ivar like turning the tide? Maybe it's an assassination. The real Olaf does not die. He doesn't even ever invade Norway, but the point being he lives a significantly longer life than that would be depicted within the show, but that's really mattered in the past. So I'd have to believe that he makes some type of deal where they're able to probably assassinate Olag. I think we'll see Olag die. So, and then probably after that, cooler heads will prevail to maybe some degree, but to the degree of they're not going to burn him to death. I don't think Vitchek's going to die. So and that's the major takeaway there. The battle, though, with Lagertha and all that was pretty good. I think it's, again, we've had a lull in the action in this series for quite a while now, and the little bit that we got was very well carried out for the most part. Bjorn's little battle was pretty good. Again, I don't know why Flatnose would go and tell him that. Doesn't seem like he had any really reason for doing that. Like, what was his motivation for doing that? I think that, he's afraid that Bjorn's going to find out what happened in Iceland. So maybe just didn't trust Harold, which is probably smart, I guess. But yeah, that action was kind of good. I really was excited to see Eric the Red finally, and I thought that was cool how they brought him in. The way in which he came in, kind of cheesy, but kind of cool. And then I really threw me off when Lagertha got killed, because I thought she's going to live throughout this episode. And then they had the big moment with Bjorn and the introduction of Eric the Red. We bookended this episode, and then we come back to this conclusion. So I thought, well done. They deceived me in a way that made me feel both intelligent and stupid. So it worked out, and I think that they ended the episode well. Now, right when everybody's going to want to resolve these issues, there's going to be like a huge invasion. So that's fantastic story right there. It's making a viable reason up for having these people not come to the resolution of their internal issues with each other. So they're going to be bonded together by an external force and so forth. It makes sense. It's pretty decent storytelling, in my opinion, as far as the validity of the story, us believing that these people are going to take these actions. And Harold, I don't know what he's going to be doing during this fight, but I can guarantee whatever he's going to be doing, Olaf is going to be probably using that last bit of power to get himself into Valhalla, and it might be going against Harold, but Harold probably will live to the end of this series as well. They placed him on the throne. Now, I believe he'll stay on it. It is, though, a question of how bitter is Bjorn's going to be about that attempt on his life. That's another thing Bjorn has to deal with. Harold had him. They tried to kill him. So now it's a little bit, his plate's full. Let's just leave it at that. So yeah, we'll probably wrap it up here. Let me go through here. I think that the series is headed towards good things. It's going to put everybody on the path that they need to be on. And let's see. What's up, Claudia? Hi, everybody new here. Well, welcome. Make sure to subscribe. Freaking Sharks and Lasers. Yeah, and I think that, this is an end of the Shield Maiden's tale, obviously. We didn't see her coffin, people, but I don't think that they would do something like having her live past this. That would make this all very confusing. And they got a lot to deal with. So yeah, I mean, I guess big takeaway is, okay, made sense. The fight with the bandits made sense. The election was fouled up in a way that was believable. And the outcome of that is the injection of Eric the Red. So they get the new character in there with Eric the Red right after this conflict. There is now the death of Lagertha that is going to, just be pulled right into the conflict. So meaning it's not going to be able to be addressed right away. It'll allow the characters to take different approaches to it. That's very smart. You have all of the great aspects of a epic battle in place, meaning they have a bunch of people that are going to have to bond together when they don't get along to fight against a greater evil. That is the story of pretty much every single epic tale there is. A whole bunch of warriors that don't get along, that have to, bring the team. It's the Avengers, it's everything. It's a whole bunch of people, bonding together despite their differences, because there can't just be good people against bad people. So we have set up a situation in which a lot of people aren't going to want to be working together, and Ivar is going to be coming over to them most likely. So that's another conflict right there. So internal, external people, you make the story stronger by making it harder to beat the external battles because of what's happening inside, because you're all conflicted inside. Your emotions are all over the place, and you don't know who to kill or who to pull your sword or your axe on. It's, you want to kill the guy next to you just as much as you want to kill the guy that's storming the beach. But at the end of the day, they're Rus, they're Norse, Danes, so they got to fight together, and then they can figure it out after. So it's set up well. The only thing I take issue in this episode with is Ivar. They finally kicked the dog. A trope term right there. They finally just had the bad guy do a bad guy thing. Too on the nose. They didn't need to do that. It's like, how do you expect that guy not to kill you? How do you expect that not to happen? It's like and then also, how are you actually in power? So I don't know. Let me know, guys. The biggest questions here is, do you think that Lagertha was sent off in a way that is, deserving of her character's place in this story, in the sense of, is this the send-off that she deserved? I think that, yes, it works. The whole hallucination thing I wasn't on board with when it was actually pitched to me earlier, but it does make sense. It was set up. It was definitely foreshadowed, and it was definitely established within the story that he was not seeing things correctly. So hey, there you go. It can't argue with the logic of it within the story, within the context of the narrative. But yeah, I think that she was going. They made us so content with her. They coddled us so well on the road to this death that it just really, honestly, she could have stubbed her toe and died. I think a lot of us would have been fine with it, but I could be wrong. Again, it's just my opinion, and I'm just letting you know how I got there, people. So take what you want from that. And also, are we okay with Vitchek living? Do we think he's going to live, or do we think he's going to die? We know he's going to at least be part of the battle, as Kate McKay brought up earlier. And how is Bjorn going to react to this? And where's Bjorn's place in the bigger picture? I think Bjorn, and if Vitchek lives, I think it's clear he'll be living and going to England with Ivar. And if he, dies, that's easy to know where he's going. But I think the hardest ones to really tell what's going to happen as far as where they're going to end up by the end of 6A, and especially in 6B, is Ubbe and Bjorn. Meaning, we kind of know where they're going, especially Ubbe. I think it's pretty clear he's going to Greenland or Iceland. But how are they gonna do that? How are they gonna convince me that that's what he needs to do, other than he wants to do it, right? Like, why does he need to go there? I guess it's to find Floki. So I just answered my own question. So that's when the stream is time to end. Make sure to subscribe, guys. And hopefully I'll get a video out on it. In memoriam to Lagertha. Catherine Winnick did a fantastic job, and I think it's a very, very good representation of a strong female in a warrior culture. So fantastic. Now wait till Rollo hears, right? So Vitchek's gonna have to watch it back on all fronts. Make sure to subscribe, guys, and thanks for stopping by, and we will see you